All right. Welcome to the podcast, Cass. You said call you Cass instead of Cassandra. She's like, it's too official,
Too
Cassandra.
official. I'm just a Cass.
Yeah. Well, you're running your company, right? Loving Life with Cass. Is that technically like your brand name or like your Instagram name? Like what's going on with that?
Yeah, that's my brand name. It's
Okay, cool.
Love and Life with Cass.
Amazing. Okay, so tell us a little bit about like what your brand's all about before we dive into the hard-hitting questions.
Yeah, so Love and Life with Cass is exactly kind of what it sounds like. It's just a brand that makes content and products that are designed to help people to love their lives with Cass.
Oh,
It's just all about encouraging and motivating people to create lives that they actually like. And not just live lives that they don't like, because that is like the saddest thing I think I've ever heard. And too many of us do it all the time.
I
So
know, it's tough.
it's really tough, and it's tough to see, especially like people you love or people you don't even know, to be honest, and just watching them like struggle. And I think it's just like kind of encompasses like who I am at my core, which is just this joyful, happy person who's very optimistic and really likes giving good pep talks. So I've taken all of that and kind of just thrown it into a brand that just tries to help people.
Amazing. So this whole episode is basically going to be like one big pep talk.
It is.
And what people probably don't know about you is that you spent 10 years in a completely different career before pivoting and starting your business, which ultimately led you to where you are today. So like what is it that made you make that decision? Like what were the things that you noticed that you wanted to change and why did you finally take that leap?
Yeah, so Love and Life with Cass got started as a travel blog. And it just basically started that way because I love traveling. It's my biggest passion and like biggest hobby in the whole world. And I love it a lot.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to keep doing that more and more. And as like the beginning of like blogging kind of took off and like the beginning of this like huge movement of digital entrepreneurs kind of happening, I was like, I need to be doing that because I want to keep traveling forever and ever and
Yeah.
never get a 9 to 5 job. So I started doing it, and it's a lot of work, and it is
Mhm.
a lot of good work. I just realized, though, pretty early on that I don't actually like making content about travel because I don't like being on my phone and working while I'm traveling.
Interesting. Fair.
Yeah, because I love it. When I go travel, I want to disconnect though, and I want to
Right.
be fully immersed. And I remember going to this travel conference, and there was all these big travel bloggers at the time, and the one girl was talking about how she works 80-hour weeks while traveling. And I just was like, that is like the complete opposite
It's a lot.
to what
Yeah.
I want. Like, I want to be able to still go places and embrace them and not be like, walking around Italy just on my phone the whole time. Like that's just not who I am.
Right.
So I kind of just started pivoting, and it kind of happened really naturally where I started getting marketing clients. So basically, with Love and Life for Cash turned into two different separate things where it merged into the brand, which I just talked about, which is just helping people and encouraging people. But then to make my income, and where I make most of my income right now, is working as a freelance marketer. And that just came from doing all these things I was doing, building a blog. Like I learned how to build a website. I learned about social media. I learned about SEO and all of these things. And I just started taking that and slowly by slowly picking up client after client after client until I started working with a marketing agency as a contractor.
Mm.
So it all just kind of worked out really naturally. But it really just came from this place where I realized that I love traveling, but I don't want to not have that freedom to enjoy my favorite thing in the whole world, and I didn't want to resent it anymore. Like I don't never want to be able to go on a plane and like hate that I'm going somewhere because I know that I'm going to be working 80 hours. Like that's
Right.
just so silly. That's not loving life with Cass at all.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I'm curious though, like it made me think of something when you mentioned, you didn't know anything about like marketing, you're starting a business and then you kind of did it all yourself. And then now you're actually supporting people to do the same thing.
Mhm.
So, and this is not to like discredit you whatsoever, but I feel like, especially like my generation, like millennials, they kind of came up and grew up in this world where social media like became a job like while we were growing. So like
Yeah.
now it is a job, and like I think they're starting to teach like proper courses in school and stuff, but we were never like taught. That was not an option, that was not an avenue. People just were doing it themselves, and then because they were good at doing it themselves, that other companies would hire them to do that work, right? And like
Mhm.
it's like, it's so weird to like look for people's like past experience and that, like depending on your age, because there's no formal like training, right? And so I'm
Totally.
curious to know, like now, like depending on like, I don't know, like what your schooling was and phase in life, do you feel like because you didn't necessarily go to school for like marketing or design or communications, that like you don't have as much of a leg up as the people that did? Or do you feel like you're just as qualified because you kind of just like did it yourself?
So I do have an associate's degree in communications,
Okay.
but it was really just focused on like photojournalism. So social media wasn't really big then because I'm
Right.
a millennial too.
Okay.
So that was definitely not taught in the course. But the only things I learned were how to make a basic website and like photo and video, which has helped obviously a lot. But I still have to learn how to do everything myself. Sorry, I'm just gonna grab a tissue. Excuse me. But I don't think it stopped me at all. I think actually I have more of a advantage towards like other people because I think it shows like any millennial who had to learn all of this stuff and who threw themselves into it. It shows your hard work, it shows your work ethic, and it shows like how dedicated you are to actually building your own business or to like helping your
Hmm.
clients. And I think the other part of it too is that like I love it for me. And I can always look back on that and be like, yeah, there was a time when I was crying over how to make a website and I was so stressed out,
How
literally,
relatable.
right? And just like the first client you got and everything went wrong. And you're like,
Right.
no one said this was going to happen. You know, what is WordPress doing right now? And you're
Yeah.
just sitting there crying and sweating and just like hating your life. And now looking back on that and being like, I can fix that in 3 seconds,
Right.
and you see that own progress. And I think that just does something for yourself also, where it's
Hmm.
just like you can just put that like in your own personal resume and be like, anytime I'm facing something now, it's like, yeah, but you know what? I built a business. I did this whole thing. I can get through this little moment. So yeah, I think I actually give people a huge advantage. And I think that it's just different. I think if you think about any other subject that we learned in school, like math, history, anything like that, that you're kind of forced to learn, it's a different than when you actually want to learn about something, right?
Yeah.
You don't have that same drive and that same passion. You're only looking at it because you're like, I want to make money this way. Where it's like for example, like history is like a subject I love, and I'll still learn about that today, and I'll just nerd out a bit and go learn about ancient Rome for a bit.
Oh my God,
But
I'm the
it's like,
opposite.
okay.
I don't know a fucking thing about history. I hated the class.
Yeah, but that's like, right? So that's exactly my point, is like you didn't have this good relationship with it.
Yeah.
You just were forced to do it. And you might know some things. I'm sure we could have a conversation if you like dig deep and you can pull things out. But like for me, it's like that's something that I love so much. So the way that I come at it now and the way that I learn about it is just so much more deeper, so much more meaningful.
Yeah,
So yeah.
that's fair. I mean, if I think about it too, like I feel like it's school is such a funny thing. Like you said, like there's so many topics. Like, and I think it's meant to also like get your brain to work in different ways, which like I understand. But like the practical, technical skill set, I feel is what is the most value that I've gained from school. Like when I went to design school and I learned how to use the programs and how to, all that stuff I still use today, right? But like
Hmm.
the theoretical things kind of like in one ear out the other, at least for me. And where I really learned like how things function is when I dove in and started my own business and did all the things, right?
Hmm.
Because when I started Nomad Creative almost 7 years ago now, it was just me. It was just myself. I eventually brought on other freelancers to support, but I had a background in design and branding, and that's what I focused on. And then I eventually was able to expand my services. Now I've brought on people to do the majority of the work, and I'm more focused now on building the business as opposed to working within the business, right?
Hmm.
So that's just like a natural transition and progression. And so I kind of, I guess, second what you said is that you learn so much just like by diving in and doing the thing. And like, despite having a formal education in it or not, like it is an education to do the job and to like to
Oh
work
yeah.
for another company. It's just like, I think that there's maybe some people that get like side-eyed or don't get taken as seriously because they're like self-taught. But if you think about like sales jobs and building out funnels and like all these people like Alex Hermosi and Russell Brunson, like they built out this whole system of like click funnels and whatnot that I guess like you never learned that in school. Like there's no opportunity to learn that in school. But like those are skill sets that are so important to have. And they teach theories and frameworks and all of these things that could be applied to businesses to help them grow and scale and build a proper sales system. So it's like I feel like people need to give self-taught individuals more credit, and I guess they are more
Mhm.
now. I think it's also like building that like reputation, having case studies to back you up is more supportive like than just having a resume of like your school and work experience. Like there's a lot more to it, getting those credentials outside of those main traditional domains of learning, I suppose.
100% agree with that. And I hope that as a society we move like into a space where we're just hiring people who have the passion to do it and who are self-taught. Because like you never know someone's potential, and sometimes like just different circumstances is what just held them back, from doing like a 4-year degree or something. But like
Yeah,
their
fair.
work ethic, their like if you look at somebody who like just went to do a 4-year degree, which is obviously hard. I'm not saying that it's not. But then you have somebody who's just like, no matter what it takes, I'm going to make it, and they're just going to go and they're going to make their own path. Like there's so many other qualities there that are
Mm,
so important for building a business, right?
yeah.
And I think that's the thing too that people kind of like sidetrack. I think that whatever kind of business you make, no matter what your education is, when you get in it, you're going to have to learn a whole bunch of stuff anyways, because it's never going to be this blueprint of like, okay, I hit my first milestone. Okay, next check. And now I'm going to
Yeah.
hire the next person. Like that's just
No,
not
no,
going to
no.
happen.
Never. No.
And so
It's
you're
like
you're going to be
zigzag the whole way.
yeah, right? It's like, okay, we're doing really good and I just failed completely.
Yeah.
And we're going back up and another
Yeah,
fail,
you're gonna
right?
make a million checklists and like add things and remove things and change things and modify them and scratch them out and completely start something completely new. Like that's normal.
Exactly. That's normal and it's part of the fun. So
Yeah,
just get into it.
I love that.
Yeah, but I hope that people do that. They just like look at off the resume, off that piece of paper,
Mm.
just a little bit more.
Yeah, speaking of off the resume, I want to know a little bit more about like your process. So, one thing we didn't mention yet is that you're selling journals, right?
Mhm.
So, talk to us a little bit about like what these journals are all about, and then I want you to get into the process of developing and selling these journals and like talk about it from like a business perspective, right? Like why did you start it? How did you do it? And then how did you finally get it into like the hands of people to start making money and make it an actual viable business?
Yeah. So it's really kind of cool. So again, it's just the whole evolution of Love and Life with Cass, where it starts from this travel blog and I'm just trying to find ways to make money with it. I end up doing freelance marketing. But then there's always just been something like just not fulfilled with this brand where it's like I know I have this feeling, I want something more, I just don't know what it is. Then the pandemic really hit hard and travel kind of stopped. So then I was like, maybe I should make other kind of content. And that's where I really dove in and just was like, um let's love life, especially with the pandemic. I started making like pep talks on Instagram and just being like everything sucks but it's okay, it's just like every Monday, and just really started diving into that. And then I had a whole complete rebrand and I just changed the colors. Everything is more vibrant, it's more positive, and it finally, after 10 years, just feels exactly what I think I've always wanted it to be, but I just never really knew because I just wasn't at that phase of my life yet, really. So then I was just looking at ways to monetize, and I was like, I want to make like there's a lot of coaching going on, and I just don't feel like a coach. I don't
Right.
feel like
Mm.
that's for me. Like I want a passive income, and I don't know. I like being the encourager. I think like someone was talking to me the other day and they're like, you can inspire, you encourage, you motivate, and then there's like, you help people to get so determined that they go. And he was like more in the end section. And I was like, I actually feel at the beginning, like, I want to be the person who's just being like, you can do it and you actually can. And I believe in you and just push you in the right direction because I think our journeys are all completely different, so that like you're not going to do it exactly like me, you're going to do it like you, and that's just what I want to push you out of the nest, like the little baby bird. And then I just had these idea for these journals. And I think that journaling for me has been one of the most therapeutic things besides actual therapy, where I have like anytime I don't know what I'm doing, I have a huge chartboard actually right in the corner, and I just like make a web and I start like writing it out, and then I take those ideas and kind of just start playing around in the journal, and there's just freedom, and there's this like freedom to be yourself 100%, and there's this like way for me to acknowledge everything I'm feeling and then thinking. And then it just kind of makes sense. So I just started making these journals. So I have them with me here. I have one called Reflection, which is a daily journal that just helps you to reflect every day. And it's really simple. It just is like a good morning entry and a good night entry. And it just talks about like 3 things you're grateful for, what's your intent for the day, only one thing you want to accomplish, and then an affirmation. And then at the end of the day, you're kind of doing a little reflection. What are you proud of? What's one thing you want to do differently tomorrow, and one thing you want to forgive yourself and other people for? But it's through that I think people can actually make huge pivots. And there's these little steps like that. But once you get so intentional with your day, and once you can look back and start like seeing your thoughts and feelings every day, like there's just so much power to that. So I just put it together. Yeah, I design things all the time. So I designed the cover, designed the inside, and I actually started using Amazon. So I use Amazon um, Kindle print on demand, or
Oh, yes. I've heard people use
Kindle
that
direct
before.
printing, sorry,
Yeah, that's
KDP.
really cool. For people who don't know, you're basically like giving them the manuscript and they like print and bind it and sell it without it ever having to like come to you, right?
Yeah,
That's amazing.
you're not buying wholesale, which is really great. So it's a great place to start, and you can
Hmm.
always switch later. So I think that's a huge thing. Is like if you don't have like a huge amount of extra resources to like pour into bookmaking, because it does get expensive. It's a great option, and it can be good for like writing books too. But I really liked it for my journals, and the quality is awesome.
Yeah.
But all you do is exactly what you said, is you're uploading like the manuscript, you're putting in the
Hmm.
details, you set the price, and then you're just advertising. You can obviously advertise through Amazon or like newsletters, social media, and all that fun stuff. And
Yeah.
then the other one I made too, it came Depth, because I really like them. And the response has been so great. And I feel like it's just the perfect thing for Love and Life with Cass, where it's like, I'm not being an influencer. I'm not doing this. I'm literally just putting like what I feel helps people out there and people responding to it. So Depth is a guided daily journal for self-discovery. And so every day there's just another question, like write about a new hobby or activity you want to try this year and why. And there's so much change and evolution that can happen when you get to know yourself better. And especially being an entrepreneur, I think that if I didn't go through all the personal development stuff while building a
Hmm.
business, I wouldn't be as successful as I am today. And I don't think Love and Life with Cass would even exist anymore.
So, what are like some questions that you would have people ask themselves in terms of gaining clarity and like setting goals when it comes to entrepreneurship and building their brands?
Yeah, I think the biggest one, the biggest thing for all the time is just asking yourself to, like, just to take a moment to do a life audit first, or if you're specifically wanting to diving into your business, like do a business audit of your ideas and literally just go through every part of your life or every part of the business and just see what you actually like about it, what you love about it, and what you completely hate about it.
Kind of like a pros and cons list in simple
Yeah,
terms. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But just like really diving deep, and like no one's reading it. Don't judge yourself for what comes up. Like if you have a business and you're writing that you hate the business, like that's okay. And I think that's like
Hmm.
really important, because there's so many times when we just keep going without like taking this moment to stop. And if you don't have a business and you want to start one, this is the best place to start, because you can start to get clarity on what is going to be great for you and what areas in the future you're going to need to outsource. Because if you hate doing email marketing, but that's a really important part of your business,
Yeah.
that's going to, when it's time to come, that's going to be one of the first places for you to outsource, right? So I
Hmm.
think that's always a good place to start. And then second, I always like to ask people what makes them come alive. I think that's also a good thing. And I feel like we don't even acknowledge that we're living sometimes. So I think it's like a really
That's a
good
good
thing.
point. That's like a really
Yeah.
deep statement that you just kind of like threw in there, but it's fucking true.
It is though, right? Like we just
Yeah.
go, 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 and we're just so into our own lives that you don't even stop to be like, "Hey, I'm actually here. This is a miracle." I saw some like meme today where it's like you're a ghost, basically like living on a spinning rock in the middle of the universe. Like, don't be afraid. And it
Yeah.
was like, "Oh yeah, good
Yeah.
point." you know,
Yeah.
just that like moment of clarity. But what makes you come alive? Like, when was the last time any of us even like thought about that, right? And just write it down. And I think there's just so much power in that. whether you want to start a business or not. But if you are at that spot where you want to be an entrepreneur, you want that freedom, you want to work for something else, like start there. Not to say that you need to monetize everything that makes you feel alive.
Yeah.
But that's a good place to start, and you want it to be something related. So for me, what makes me come alive? Traveling, obviously, is a
Mm-hmm.
huge one. Um,
Samesies.
yeah, but so then, like, even though I'm not in travel industry anymore, like that's my why now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, even if it's not exactly like how you're monetizing things, like that's the energy that I want. Is I want to be traveling. I still want a job that lets me travel, a
Yeah.
job, you know? And I even like have my passport here at all times just so I can always see it, so I'm ready to go. And I remember, oh look, there it is, my passport. That's why I'm doing this work right now, you know?
Yeah. Love that.
Um, and then the next one is, what skills do you have? And I think this is like another huge one, and it kind of seems basic, but I want people to really dive deep, like in what value you have to bring to the world. And again, you don't need to monetize everything. And it's also okay for it to be like completely silly, right? So it's like, yeah, I'm really good with computers. I can design stuff, but like also I have a really great skill of singing in the car, you know, and just like have fun with it a little bit, because you never know what things will come from it. And I think that's kind of huge, and it's kind of the mindset you need for being an entrepreneur, is you need to be open-minded to like anything happening and
Yeah.
anything being monetized, you know? If you look at some like entrepreneurs, like I met this girl a long time ago, and she was just wanting to make a product that could curl your hair without using acrylic heat on it. And I remember her talking about like how silly she thought she was and all this stuff, and she just really didn't want to use like heat, and that was
Yeah.
just this thing she wanted. And now she's like selling them, you know, and she's got this whole business set up, and it's just so great. So you really never know like what product can come out of it. And she had no like experience inventing things or anything like that, but it was just this like little passion of like wanting to help people have nice curly hair, and the idea that like her skill set of just being like, I'm willing to try it, you know, and having
Mm-hmm.
that open mindset. So I think that's a great place for people to explore. And also with that, I think it's also good to just have hobbies in life. And I think that's like thing for entrepreneurs, is sometimes everything just becomes work, and it's just like, oh, I'm really good at this, so throw it into the business, you know, and you
Right.
just like keep pushing it. But looking at your skills and just being like, I really like photography, so that's just a hobby I want to do, and I'm going to go take a walk in nature and take some pictures. I think that's also really good just for a work life balance.
Yeah, I love that. And like to kind of go back to on the journaling aspect,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've done a lot of journaling myself. And like you said, you kind of write without feeling any kind of judgment. And if you've never journaled before and you're listening to this, when you start, you'll be very surprised at like what comes out and what continues. Cause it's one thing to kind of like sit there and think and wonder, like maybe it's on a walk or, while you're having your morning coffee, whatever it may be. But when you write, something different happens because those initial thoughts that you would be thinking otherwise are going down on paper. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, what's next? So instead of like circling around those thoughts, it just enables you to get a little bit deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And like an exercise that I've used in the past that I've heard a lot of people using is like the why exercise, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling this way and no. Well, why? And then you keep going and you keep going, you keep asking why to all of the things that you're feeling or that you're expressing. And then it kind of brings you to this kind of summary or conclusion that you probably wouldn't have got to if you were just thinking it,
a
because you're
hundred
being a
percent
lot more intentional, right? And getting
Mm-hmm.
super narrow and specific on this idea. So, like, if you're stuck on something or you have a specific idea or you're doubting yourself or you're not sure if you should take that next step, it's like, well, why are you not sure you should take that next step? Oh, because I'm scared of failing. Well, why are you scared of failing? Oh, because like I'll be judged by my family. Well, why do you think you're going to be judged by your family? And then it goes on and on and on and on. And then all of a sudden you have this like aha moment and you're like, oh, it all makes sense. And it can be like so unrelated. There's no right or wrong answer. It's not school. You're not being graded.
Yeah.
You just get so much clarity from it. And I think
So
it's
much clarity.
underrated for sure. So,
A
yeah,
hundred
totally
percent.
appreciate that. And so, if you're listening and you feel like you want to try journaling for the first time and maybe a blank piece of paper is daunting, then definitely check out Cass's journals because they have those prompts there that are super supportive to really help you get that clarity and help you set
Mm-hmm.
your goals.
And they'll help you make a habit of journaling. So yeah, if it
Mm,
is really daunting, because I guess a blank page does look really intimidating sometimes, especially if you're not used to even like talking about your feelings or asking yourself these questions of
yeah, that's
diving deep
true.
into the why.
It's not as
Um,
natural for everybody.
yeah, it's
Hmm.
definitely not. But if you buy one of the journals and you're using it every day, like that's gonna already set that hobby for you,
And they're
habit.
pretty, so like, that
They're
helps.
super pretty.
I honestly do feel like that helps. Like I
Oh,
will go
definitely.
and like pick something that looks cuter over something else. Obviously functionality like matters, but like if it's cute, you better bet I'm paying for it.
I'm buying 2. I'm giving one to someone else, you know?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, no, I've actually bought, and there's like a few like different types of brands of journals that I've liked and that I've purchased as gifts for other people because I just feel like it's like such a perfect little gift. And then they can do what they want with it. And hopefully I encourage
Mm.
them to, open up their minds and explore their feelings and come to some kind of conclusion on whatever it is that they're trying to work through, right?
Yeah, and how beautiful is that? Like the ripple
Mm-hmm.
effect of that,
Mm-hmm.
who knows? Who knows what you're doing?
I love it. I love it. Okay, Cass, before we
Mhm.
wrap up, we always end with a mindful minute. So, what's one thing that you wish someone told you that would have supported you immensely on like your entrepreneurial journey, on growing your brand, something that you can't necessarily learn in a textbook?
Mm. Can I say 2 things?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 1 would be to follow your heart. And I think that at first, I know for me at least, when you start off, you're like, I know nothing. I need to learn everything I can, which is great. Except for there's a lot of people who do a lot of things differently. And not everything's going to work out the same. So, like, I found like I was buying into all these courses that had like great information, but at the same time, like, it just wasn't probably the best use of my money because it
Mm,
wasn't like you can't just like take someone else's blueprint and kind of be like, okay, it's all just going to work out, right? It just kind of
yeah.
doesn't do that way
It's
with
like a
different
starting
people.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like just I don't know if someone just came around or if like me now could go back in time, it would just be like, just follow your heart and just trust your instincts a little bit. Like, obviously, there needs to be a balance, but I think deep down, you know yourself better than anyone else does. And you're going to know your business and what you want to do. So, definitely take a look at what's out there, take the information, but make the choices that you think are best and just see what happens. If it doesn't work out at the end of the day, you know that you did it what you wanted and you tried something and that's great. And if it
Hmm.
does work out, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
The other thing too, though, is just to, this is kind of contradictory, but just to learn as much as you can and grow and evolve always. I think the one of the scariest things for me, like one thing I just don't want is to wake up one day and be like, I stopped growing. I stopped changing. Like, I think that's just insane,
Mm,
because it's like life is about evolving. And even if you look at like nature, like trees, they grow from little things and they get bigger and bigger and they die. And that's the circle of life. But like at some point, it seems like a lot of like adults just become adults and then they kind of just like stay in this one spot, and I think that is just so not cool. Keep pushing yourself to do different things, and it's totally okay if you wake up at 40 and decide that you want something completely different.
yeah, totally.
Evolve with your own flow, and just keep like finding things to learn so that you can keep doing that. Like for me, traveling is a great way to learn because you meet new people, you get to go new places, you experience new cultures, or reading. I really like to read, so just like getting new materials, new ideas in your head. But whatever that is, if you like want to go learn how to draw, or you always want to learn how to cook better, like just keep doing something so that, um, yeah, you look back on your life and you have this full life and you just enjoyed it to like the fullest, and you just lived, you really lived. I think that would be great if people did that.
I love that. That's amazing. Two amazing, amazing pieces of advice. Thank you so much for joining us today, Cass. Where can people go to find you and learn a little bit more about loving life with Cass?
Yes, they can go to the website, which is loveandlifewithcass.com, or you can follow me on Instagram. Just look up Love and Life with Cass. That's my main social media. I have Pinterest and TikTok and all this stuff, but honestly, I'm just invested in Instagram right now. And you can sign up for my newsletter, and I give out beautiful little encouraging emails every once in a while. Oh, and then follow me
Cute.
on, go on Amazon to buy the journals. And like the links
Yeah.
are in the bio and they're all over the website too, so easy to find.
Amazing. We'll also link them in the show notes. So if you're interested in buying the journals, it'll be easy peasy for you.
Woo-hoo.
Thank you to everyone who listened, and we'll chat next week.
Yeah,
Bye.
thanks so much.